Hello everybody, video here for you today. This is the retro no-cap recap of The Curse of Oak Island, Season 7, Episode 9, called An Eye for an Eye, originally aired January 14th, 2020. If you missed any of my recaps of previous and future episodes, there's a link to my Oak Island playlist in the upper right. Let's get into it. Do-do-do-do. Previously, on The Curse of Oak Island, people have been looking for an incredible treasure for 229 years. The team meets in the war room to decide the next step after finding what they believe is Shaft 2. Shaft 2 was the first ever searcher shaft, dug, as most were, to try to bypass the flood tunnels that made the Money Pit shaft itself impossible to explore further. The location of the original Money Pit shaft has long been lost, but Shaft 2 and Shaft 9, also recently found, have documented distances and bearings from it. At 110 feet depth in Shaft 2, Daniel McGinnis and his partners tunneled towards the Money Pit, and they get close, but not quite before the tunnel in Shaft 2 flooded like the Money Pit. They will begin a borehole drilling program in order to determine the location of the tunnel, which they could then follow to the Money Pit. In the Money Pit area, surveyor Steve Guptill uses GPS data of shafts 2 and 9 and picks this spot 2 feet away from shaft 2. The drill rig does appear to be backing up in the direction of the X I put on this image in the recap for Season 7, Episode 8 last week. Zig would be so proud. Gary and Peter arrive at Smith's Cove to metal detect. On the last episode, the team decided to temporarily stop digging the shaft found just into the bump out area so that they would not cut off access to the rest of the bump out, especially the area in line with the slipway and wall found the previous year. Billy has been scraping the area with the excavator, and Gary will now metal detect those spoils. He finds this, but has no idea what it is. Some iron object. Billy points out some flat rocks he uncovered, and Gary says that they could be part of the French drain/flood tunnel system. Billy next uncovers this timber. Rick and Terry immediately come to check it out. Terry, who is a geologist, says that the stones were not put there by nature, that this is a man-made structure. This is the location of it in the bump out area. Doug arrives and says he thinks it's a pier or wharf directly in line with the slipway. Rick suggests that the slipway from the 1700s could possibly have been built on top of an older structure. Back in the Money Pit area, Choice Drilling's Mike Tedford tells Terry that he thinks he punched through something and then into a void, and they find wood in the core sample he just brought over. Terry says it's likely the ceiling of the tunnel at approximately 100 feet. They will move a few feet more along the same line to try to hit the tunnel again to determine the orientation. Researcher Corian Mall is back in the war room along with fellow researcher Chris Morford. They would later write a book together called The Jerusalem Files that debuted in February 2024. And as of this recording, there's an IMDb listing for a TV movie of the same name with both of them in it. They're in the war room to put an X on the map of the swamp. Adding to the paintings information Corian presented in the previous episode, he uses Nolan's cross to align a pentagram, and Steve marks the center, which is approximately the eye of the swamp. Rick says they will dig it, and says that Corian and Chris are welcome back at any time. The next day, Steve meets geoscientist Dr. Ian Spooner and his students from Acadia University at the swamp for some exploration of the eye. They will try to get more accurate data on the positioning of the stones around the eye, while 2 of the students will measure depth of the swamp in various locations. Dr. Spooner takes this core of the swamp sediment. He explains that he will be able to trace the history of the swamp by examining each centimeter of the core at his lab. They do not say anything about the stones. Back in Smith's Cove, Billy continues to uncover the newly discovered structure. Gary sees this wooden peg and suggests that it could be related to the U-shaped structure in which they found pegs as well. Gary spies this bigger one also. Rick arrives and Gary shows him the pegs and the big log that Billy is currently uncovering. After uncovering more of it with a shovel, Rick says it's strange. He says there's a big log, then a smaller carry log on top of it, and a beam on top of that. Then another log and carry log nearby. I assume carry log means that it's a support of some type for the structure. The structure is 10 feet below sea level. Rick suggests that the bottom part is much older and that it was built on top of. The big log, which Rick says could be oak, also appears to be packed with sandy clay. Rick decides to halt the uncovering work until archaeologist Laird Niven can examine it and render an opinion. Tom Nolan joins the team in the war room to hear Dr. Spooner's report on the eye of the swamp. He explains that the bottom is glacial till, then there's a disturbed layer. The carbon dating of the organic matter in the disturbed layer is 1600s. Another core gives a slightly older date range, which results in Dr. Spooner putting the date of what he refers to as significant human activity at 1680, 115 years before the money pit was discovered. This is another view of the layers that Dr. Spooner does not elaborate more on in this episode, but we know the war room presentations get edited down significantly. Core sample taken from close to the road, the base of the triangle, shows the initiation of the swamp dates to 1220 AD. Dr. Spooner says that too was human manipulation and states several times that it was a very big project carried out in different eras. Rick tells Dr. Spooner of Zena's map and the named areas of the swamp. The good doctor will compare his data to the map to see how it lines up. The episode closes out with narrator Robert Clotworthy saying that having scientific evidence that a major engineering effort could have taken place in the swamp 800 years ago is nothing short of a historic breakthrough. I'll be continuing retro no-cap recaps of seasons 7 and 8 during the fall. All of the other episodes are already done and are in my Oak Island playlist. Season 12 of The Curse of Oak Island will begin airing November 12th, 2024. I'm also doing retro no-cap recaps of seasons 2 through 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Seasons 1 and 5 are all done and are in that Skinwalker Ranch playlist. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Siempre avanti.